Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another first round playoff preview series. We're going to be talking about the New York Rangers and New Jersey Devils, the series that they're calling the Hudson River rivalry. This is a rivalry between two teams. This is a first round matchup that everybody's really excited about. And we've got two fantastic people from the Hockey Writers here to talk to us about this series. Erin Casey's with us. She covers the New York Rangers, and Kristy Flannery is here with the New Jersey Devils. Erin, I'll start with you. How you doing today? Thank you for coming on here and doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How about you?
Really, really good about this series. This is a series where somebody's going to have to go home, and it's really unfortunate that that's the case because these are two very solid teams. And we talked about this in the somebody's going to have to come into that series where I figured if both these teams could do really well. Kristy's going to some of these things with the New Jersey Devils. Kristy, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you doing?
Really, really good. Let's start with you. I want to give a quick rundown of what this series looked like between these two teams during the regular season, give people an idea of how well the New Jersey Devils and New York Rangers played this season, what their teams sort of look like respectively. I'll just do a very quick Cole's Notes version of it, and then I'll come to you about what you think the Devils look like going into this series. So between the two teams, it was 3-0-1 for the Devils. So basically, they won 3 of the 4, lost 1 in overtime. They are kind of the favorites going into this, although not by a ton. They are considered the better team, younger, skilled, fast, but inexperienced, where the Rangers, who were back in the playoffs again last year, went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and are now considered the vet, even though they went through a really quick rebuild. This is going to be a fun series because you've got two sort of different styles here, right? You've got the young, inexperienced, and speedy, skilled New Jersey Devils, and then you've got the Rangers, who have a really heavy probably 9, top 6, top 9, that can finish. They're bigger bodies and they're not as fast. I'm going to ask you, what do you think about the Devils' chances here? What did you think of the regular season? What did you think of when they played the Rangers this year? What's it looking like for them going into this?
So it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be so great for the fans. As you said, the Devils did win the regular season series. I think what's really interesting is when you look at Shesterkin is one of the best goaltenders in the league. We all know this. But when I went and looked at his stats, his career versus New Jersey is 7-5-1. But what's interesting is that he's 1-3-1 in his last 5 starts. So it seems like the Devils kind of give him a little bit of a problem, which I am going to personally, that's going to be something that I'm going to be watching. But like you said, you have a really young team that's kind of their window to contend is opening up versus the Rangers, who are kind of in like a win now mode. So it's going to be a really interesting series to see these two teams collide over a 7-game series.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this might be the one matchup in the first round where the two styles of they're so good, they're skilled, they're different, right? And it's going to be very interesting to watch that. Erin, when it comes to the Rangers, what did you see out of the team this year? I mean, they I don't even know if you call it a rebuild so much. They kind of went through the fastest rebuild in this generation of hockey, and they were right back in the playoffs again. And then at the deadline, they added all these pieces, and they're like a really heavy veteran team now. So what did you see from the Rangers this year? How do you think they fare up against the Devils?
Yeah, of course. So the Rangers actually got off to a pretty mediocre to rough start, aside from like the first 2 games of the season. They had a couple really demoralizing losses in November and December. We had that kind of viral moment of Jacob Trouba chucking his helmet across the glass against the Blackhawks. And the next day, I think it was Emily Kaplan reported that Gerard Gallant could be in the hot seat, and the Rangers kind of needed to turn things around super fast. And that's exactly what they did. They went on a 9-game win streak, a little bit cold around the All-Star break, but then we hit the trade deadline. And I think the Rangers probably had the most exciting trade deadline of the entire league. They added really big stars in Vladimir Tarasenko and Patrick Kane, and then also added a lot of depth that they really needed in Nico Mikkola and Tyler Mott. So like Kristy was saying, this series is going to be absolutely brutal, but something that fans should really be looking forward to.
Well, we're going to flip over to the players to watch here, but to give a quick rundown of what each team has at their disposal. For the Devils, they had 112 points this season, which was a huge jump from last year, which was fantastic for them. Jack Hughes with 99 points. Awesome season for Jack Hughes. He's the guy to watch here. Nico Hischier with 80. Dougie Hamilton from the blue line with 74 points. Jesper Bratt with 73. And on the Rangers side, Artemi Panarin, again, kind of leading the way with 92 points. Mika Zibanejad with 91. Adam Fox, their star, Norris Trophy candidate, 72 points, and Vincent Trocheck with 64. Kristy, who are you watching for the Devils here? Are any of those names kind of the ones? I mean, you mentioned it earlier in your response to what to kind of watch for the Devils here, but is there somebody that's sort of a standout for the series for you? Somebody that you're kind of keeping an eye on that you think could kind of be a difference maker for the Devils?
So you mentioned all the team stars, and they were the ones that really got this team into the playoffs. But once the playoffs start, I'm of the philosophy that it's your stars that get you in, but it's your depth pieces that really will make the impact in the postseason. And with that logic, I would be an idiot to not say Andre Palat. Like, this is the season for this man. This is his moment to shine. And I think a lot of Devils fans are waiting to see him take the next step because it was a really tough season for him. He had the injury. We all know that it's not an easy adjustment for a player coming to a new team and learning a new system. So I think all eyes are going to be on Andre Palat just in the postseason, not just this series, but just in general. And I'm going to throw a wrench into everything. And I'm actually going to say Nate Bastian. And if you're not familiar with the Devils, you probably have no idea who that is. But he's a fourth line grinder that has seen time on the power play and the penalty kill. And the reason I bring him up is that with Bastian in the lineup, the Devils record is 33-7-3. With Bastian out of the lineup, the record is 19-15-5.
Yeah, that is probably a name that it wouldn't have registered on most people's radar. But that's a good name to point out here. It's probably somebody to watch for sure. Before I move over to Erin, I want to ask you this, Kristy, do you believe that the inexperience of the Devils and their lack of playoff for most of these stars or a lot of these players, because there's only a handful of them on this team that have played in the playoffs before, do you think that factors into this series at all?
I think from the outside, you want to say yes, but I talked to a couple of veterans actually at practice a few hours ago, including Brendan Smith, Curtis Lazar, and then you have to add in Eric Halla too. And especially with Brendan and Eric, they are very vocal leaders. And I think having them in the locker room is going to help fix that inexperience, because you have veteran guys who are extremely vocal and will have no problem calling guys out if things aren't being done the right way. So I don't think the inexperience is going to be as much of a challenge as the outside would expect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? The Rangers were in a much different spot last season, right? They had a lot of inexperience and it didn't seem to bother them too much. They went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Exactly.
Erin, same question regarding the names that you're looking for and watching here with the Rangers. Is it the Tarasenkos or the Patrick Kanes that were added to the deadline, or is it some of these other stars? Is it somebody else completely? Who are you keeping your eyes on for the Rangers?
So you absolutely always have to keep your eye out on the stars: Tarasenko, Kane, Panarin, those figures, Igor Shesterkin, Adam Fox. But the people I'm going to be especially watching is the so-called kid line of Filip Chytil, Capo Kakko, and Alexis Lafreniere. They people didn't know really what to expect from them in the playoffs last year, and then they really popped. Even when the Rangers were really struggling in that series against the Penguins, they were the ones that were being oftentimes, honestly, the most consistent line. And so with that experience under their belt from last year, I'm really looking to them to see what they can bring this year after a pretty decent season for all three of them. So I think it'll be a line that will give the Devils a lot of trouble. And I think we can all look towards them to bring scoring, but also a little bit of grittiness here and there. So it should be good. I
love kid lines. I'm dating myself right now when I say this, because it'll go tell you how much of a hockey fan I was a long time ago. In 1990, I followed the Oilers, if you look behind me, and there was a kid line when the Oilers won the Stanley Cup in 1990, and it was maybe the most effective line for the Edmonton Oilers. So I love kid lines because I think they can actually produce, and they don't usually get the credit. And then after the series is over, you look back and you go, wow, were they really effective? So I think the Rangers have that. I agree with you. I think that's a good pick. If we're talking about keys to victory in the series here, Kristy, what do you think it is for the Devils? Is it their speed? Is it maybe their inexperience and the fact that they just don't know what not to know? Like, what you don't know matters sometimes, right? So what do you think the key to victory here is for the Devils?
Just stick to their game plan. They have their speed. That is their weapon. They're so good on the rush. Just stick to their game plan, because I think there's so many emotions and there's so much competitiveness, like especially when that puck drops for game one, that you don't want to be kind of like put into a situation where you're stepping away from your game. And now you're out of position because you're trying to match the Rangers' physicality and you're trying to do the big hits. Play your game. just play the game. And I think fans have heard Lindy Ruff, during the team's losses throughout the season say, we didn't stick to our game plan. That's why we lost. So I think for the Devils, it's just stick to what they know. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They finished third best in the league for the regular season. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and they were good out of the gates, right? Like maybe it was surprising to some people, and there was talk of Lindy Ruff and how secure his job was at the very, very beginning of the season, but New Jersey got off to a hot start and just kept playing well. So clearly they know that their game works and they can do that. What are you looking at, Erin? Is there a key to the series for you when it comes to the Rangers, something that they need to do or stick to or deploy to kind of beat? They're the underdogs going into this, not by a lot, but they are the underdogs a little bit. What's the key for them?
I hate to be cliche here, but I think it's absolutely goaltending and special teams. I mean, we've already talked about Igor Shesterkin a little bit, and maybe the Devils have had his number in the regular season, but he is on fire right now. Like I was saying a little bit before, he had a little bit of a rough patch after the All-Star break, but he's totally back to his Vezina caliber self. In the last month and a half, his goals against average is under 2, and his save percentage is above 940. And so those are some really strong numbers. And when I see those, I think that Igor can absolutely steal some games here, and that's going to be really huge for the Rangers. And then, of course, when we talk about special teams, these are moments that can really shift the momentum of games and even series. And so the Rangers have also been faring pretty well in those situations lately. They're averaging over 1 power play goal per game in April, and they've only allowed 1 power play goal in all of April total. So I think, if you can lock down those two areas, have Igor steal a couple games here and there, and then also be really strong on the power play and the penalty kill, they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, the Rangers do look like a team on paper that if you look at them and their man advantage, it should be deadly. Like the Oilers have broke their record this year for their power play, and but the Rangers to me might be the second best power play in the league. And that's a fair, observation, because I think the Rangers are going to be really strong if they get those power play opportunities. Kristy, what do you think is going to happen here? Is there a weakness for the Devils? I mean, maybe the inexperience, but is there something here that you're kind of worried about, a weakness that the Devils will have to avoid if they want to move forward here?
Personally, there's not a worry, but I think for a lot of the outside fans and other, media members, I think the one thing that consistently comes up with the Devils is it's not necessarily their inexperience, more than are they built to withstand a physical series. And I know in the regular season, the Rangers had over 600 hits more than the Devils did. They're a physical team. That's kind of part of their identity. And I think that's kind of where people are curious, is if how the Devils are going to respond to that. Because if you look back at any Stanley Cup winning team, they all played a physical game. Colorado, St. Louis, Tampa. So I think that is one area that may be worrisome for some. And I think that's maybe the biggest question mark going into the round 1 for the Devils.
Is that a size factor, or is that a unwillingness or just lack of ability to play that physical style of game? What is it in New Jersey there that might hold them back in that regard?
I don't think it's, you say size, but I think some of the more physical guys, like Eric Hall is like a gritty guy, but he's only, I think, 5'11". He's not, 6'6". He's not 6'5". I think it's just a matter of just finishing your check. And not, like I said, you don't need to go out of position to make the big hit. It's just finishing the check and just making sure that your opponent knows that when they have the puck on their stick, you're there. I think that's more of what it is. And it's just not their game. It's not their style. It's not really what they excelled in. And at the end of the day, if you have the puck on your stick more than your opponent, there's no need for you to hit because you already have the puck.
Well, it'll be really interesting because we talk about this every year, how when one team goes all the way and they win the Stanley Cup and then other teams start to, emanate that team and copy that format. If the Devils can do that without being a physical team and make a long run or go all the way without playing that style, it'll be very interesting to see if other teams kind of look at that and go, maybe we don't have to play that way to win. So it is going to be interesting for them. But what about you, Erin? Is there a weakness with the Rangers, something that you're kind of watching that you're a little worried about, that might put them behind the 8 ball or see them struggle to get past the Devils here?
Sure. I kind of have 2 things. The first one is more X's and O's perspective. Sometimes we see the Rangers just get pinned in their own zone for a really long time. And this puts a lot of pressure on Igor Shesterkin. Obviously, a lot of the time he can handle it, but it really just allows them to give up too many high danger scoring opportunities. And with Jack Hughes on the Devils, you really just can't be doing that. And so I would really like to see the Rangers kind of improve that to find success in this series. And then the other thing that I'll be keeping my eye on that, you know, could worry some fans in the team would be injuries. The team's pretty healthy right now, but Ryan Lindgren was out for a really long time with an upper body injury. This guy is pretty much indestructible, so I think it would take a lot more to keep him out of a playoff lineup, but it's just something to keep an eye on. The team is much better with him than without him. And then another thing is Patrick Kane missed a few games, I think probably due to his hip, and you just really want to make sure, you know, like we said at the beginning, this is going to be a really grueling series, and so it's really important that everyone stays healthy.
I was going to ask you about Patrick Kane because the knock before the trade was that maybe he wasn't going to be healthy enough to make it through a couple rounds or even one round. Have you heard much in that regard since he got there? Has he been fairly healthy? Is it still a major concern as far as his injury history goes?
You know, he seems really healthy when you look at him out on the ice. And honestly, from the interviews he's given and stuff like that, he really has said it's just nothing. Of course, though, he's a hockey player. Of course, he's going to say that. But it really seems like in the last 2 games, he looks like he's good to go. So I think those couple games that he missed were probably just a precaution, if I had to guess.
That's fair. All right. I love having fun with this one because I think you get some really interesting answers. Let's do a bold and a not so bold prediction. So the bold prediction is basically you going out on a limb. Maybe you're watching something that nobody else is really thinking about or paying attention to, and you're sort of putting yourself out there and saying, I think this might happen in this series. And then the not so bold prediction is something more obvious that maybe everybody knows about, is aware of, but you're like, yes, this is probably going to happen in this series. So Kristy, I'll start with you. If you had to pick a bold or not so bold prediction when it comes to the Devils, what would you choose?
I mean, if you're going to go bold, I guess you really have to just go for it. So I guess my bold prediction is that it's going to be a sweep, where everyone here is thinking that it's going to be a 7-game hard-fought series. For the purposes of this show, my bold prediction will be that it will be a sweep.
That's the first. We have not had in the many videos that we've done so far. We have not had anybody say that their team's going to sweep, and we've had a few where the matchups aren't quite as close. But I like it. I like that you're going out there and you're doing that. It's good.
For the purposes of this.
Yeah, well, and you know what? If you're right, you're going to look like a genius, right? It's perfect. Do you have a not so bold prediction if you were to pick something that's a little more obvious that you think are like, yeah, this is probably going to happen?
I mean, you could always sit down and say that Jack Hughes is going to lead the Devils in points because what he did this season is just unreal, and he's 21 years old. I guess my other not so bold prediction is that arguably this is probably going to be the best playoff atmosphere of all the first round matchups. This is going to be the one for fans that it's going to be a very intense atmosphere at Prudential Center and Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, it's going to be heated, right? These two teams haven't faced each other in 11 years in the playoffs, but they don't like each other very much. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. Erin, what about you? Is there a bold prediction and a not so bold prediction that you have when it comes to the Rangers?
Well, I'll start with my not bold prediction because it's kind of the opposite of Kristy's bold prediction. And I think this series is going 7 games. I can't see a way that it gets settled any other way. I think these teams are both so evenly matched. People are going to be really fired up for this. I think it's going to be a close one, and I think it's going to 7. So we'll see.
Well, I think fans would love it. You know, I don't know if either team would love it, but I think the fans would love it. If it could go 7 and you could stretch it out, the fans would get a lot of bang for their buck. What about a more bold prediction, something that you're going to kind of go out on a limb and say, I think this is possible?
Sure. So I think even though this series is, you know, a first round series, obviously, I think it has the potential to be almost franchise defining for both teams in the next couple years. This is a budding rivalry. And when you really think about it, these teams are in kind of similar positions. The Rangers are maybe a little bit 1 year ahead of the Devils, but they're both younger teams really trying to make their claim that they're serious contenders. And going out in the first round is absolutely brutal. And I think whichever team loses, it's going to really haunt them. And you might see transactions, coaching decisions, system changes that might kind of, when you dig into the details, it might be in response to this series. So I think, you know, what's starting right now, we might be feeling the effects of for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think in the Rangers situation, because you have so many question marks with contracts and things like that, if it doesn't necessarily go their way, you could definitely see some changes. Let's move into some respective MVP conversations. So, Kristy, I'll start with you. And you can pick a Devils player. You can pick a Rangers player. Doesn't matter which side you go with. Most people have gone with their own teams, but that's totally okay if you don't. Do you see an MVP in this series, regardless of how it shapes up?
I'm just gonna go flat because, like I said, this is his moment. This is his thing. It's the playoffs. So I'm gonna say that this is gonna be where he's really gonna step up and kind of show why General Manager Tom Fitzgerald gave him the contract that he did.
That's a good pick. I like it. Erin, what about you? Do you have an MVP for this series?
I had a little bit of trouble with this one, but I've settled on Artemi Panarin. He has led the Rangers this season in points with 92. He's had 4 goals in his last 5 games, and it really seems like he is locked in this year. He didn't perform as great as people were expecting last season in the playoffs, despite having that overtime winner against Pittsburgh. But still, a lot of people were speculating, he might be playing injured. It doesn't seem like he's got all that he can give. And so I think this season, he's geared up. He looks absolutely locked in. And I think he's going to come up really big for the Rangers.
No, I like that pick too. I had him in my fantasy pool. I was a little disappointed at times when he didn't show up and score a bunch of goals, but he's still a really, really solid player. If I'm going to pick an MVP here, and you mentioned it earlier, Erin, I think Shesterkin's a key. If he plays really, really well, I think we're going to look back at this series, should the Rangers get through it, and go, Shesterkin played the way that he can play and the way he played last year. And if he can do that, I think that the Rangers stand a really good chance. If he does not play as well as Shesterkin, the Vezina caliber goalie, or the Vezina winning goalie, I think the Rangers are in trouble. So for me, I like him as an MVP choice. Okay, let's go with predictions. I'll start with Kristy. Where do you think this is going? You said sweep. And that was your bold prediction, but is that what you actually think is going to happen? Where are you going to pick this series and in how many games?
I do not think that this is going to be a sweep, although I will take the credit if the Devils do end up with a sweep. You know what? I think it's going to go, let's go 6. Let's go 6 games. And this is not even bias. This is just watching the Devils. The Devils, half of their wins were comeback victories. If there's one thing that this team has proven all season, it's that they are resilient. They have a lot of tenacity. And for that reason alone, I can't count them out.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. When you have that many comeback victories in a season, it can't be ignored. It really can't.
I wonder how that'll translate from comebacks within a game to comebacks inside a series. Like if they get down early and they're down, say 2-0 to the Rangers, do they have that same ability to come back and look at this and go, look, yes, we can win 4 in a row, or yes, we can win the next, 4 out of 5. Like, can they do that? Is that same mentality translate over? Do you have an opinion on that? Do you think that they've shown that they have no experience doing it yet with this group? Is it possible for them?
I kind of think it is. I feel like this is a team that they really did get the right pieces with Brendan Smith, Eric Hall, John Marino, and like something's just really jiving for them. And they really do have that no quit attitude and that belief that even if they're down 3 goals, they can come back.
No, that's good. It'd be fun to see. Like I hope this is even all the way through. I'd really, really like to see like 1-1-1-1 and just keep going all the way to 7, but I'm not sure that'll happen. Erin, what about you? Do you have a prediction? Do you have which way you think this series is going to go? Or you stick with the Rangers? Or do you think they're going to get through this, and how many games?
I have Rangers in 7. And actually for kind of the same reason that Kristy has the Devils, the Rangers have the second most comeback wins this season. And so we've seen what they can do within an individual game. And last season in the playoffs, we saw what they can do in a series. They were down 3-1 to Pittsburgh, won that series. We're down 2-0 to Carolina, won that series as well. And on top of that, we've also seen them come back from a lot of adversity within an entire season. The Rangers were out of a playoff spot for a really long time, and now they're back. They're ready to go. I think they've been put through the ringer sometimes, and I think, they might have come out stronger for that. And I think that's really going to prepare them for what I think will be a really tough playoff series.
Yeah, I think this will be a fun one to watch too. I'm going to go with the Devils in 7. I just think it's so evenly matched. It's really hard to predict a winner, but I'm also kind of on the train of sometimes what you don't know is a good thing. And the inexperience that the Devils have going into this just doesn't show them or tell them that they can't win this. I think they can. And so because of that, I have a feeling that maybe New Jersey's going to wow some people early on and maybe go up to an early lead and just pull it out. But I think it'll be close. I think the Devils are going to win it in 7, but it'll be very interesting to watch. Erin, I'll start with you. Where can people read your work? Where can they find you if you want to share your Twitter or any other handle? Go ahead and do that right now.
Sure. So my name is Erin Casey. I'm writing for the Hockey Writers, as you all know, and I'm writing about the Rangers. And then you can find me on Twitter at 5280 EMC.
Right on. And Kristy, how can people find your stuff?
On Twitter, you can follow me at instilettos_NHL. And moving forward, my articles and all my content will be over at the Hockey News.
Well, we appreciate both of you doing this. It was a fantastic breakdown of the first round matchup between the Rangers and the Devils. As we talked about, a series that a lot of people are looking forward to, even fans that don't follow these two teams as closely as some might, like the two of you do. This is going to be entertaining for people. So for everybody else that's watching this, go ahead and in the comment section of the YouTube video, put your predictions. Let us know what you think is going to happen with this series, who wins it and how many games, and any other comments you want to make on the video. Feel free to do that. Check out the other content on the Hockey Writers and the other videos with the first round preview breakdowns. And until the next one, and maybe, and hopefully we'll have one of you on when your team makes it through for the second round. I appreciate both of you doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Okay, folks, we'll see you on the next one.